Welcome to the service clinic at Low Country Harley-Davidson. I'm Doc Harley. I've been asked to talk about spark plug wires. Will you indulge me a little bit? Let's go through history a little bit before we get to that final answer to the question of spark plug wires purchasing. Back in the early days, when I had a 59 pan head or a shovel head or any of the earlies, it was easy to improve the ignition system. The coils, easy to buy an aftermarket one that puts out a lot more voltage. Plug wires, they were very basic from Harley-Davidson, and over time, yeah, they would wear through. So we could get some XL or some other type of plug wires that protected a lot better. We had electronic points, and some of us used some Chevy points or something. It was very basic, and we had the very basic spark plug that we could improve with other brands. Okay, we could go to Champions or the other style to get a better spark. So it was easy to improve the ignition system of the early bikes. Then we graduated to very early electronic ignition, and we learned about radio frequency interference. I don't know if you are old enough to remember in your car when you're traveling with your mom and dad and you've got the AM radio on and your dad accelerates and all of a sudden you hear through the radio speakers yeah, that's all the radio frequency interference from the spark plugs firing and the plug wires and all the electronics underneath the hood. Well, Harley had to deal with that too, because we had the very early electronic ignition that was affected by a lot of frequencies. So we had to change our spark plugs to a 5R6, something with an R resistor in it to help with the radio frequency. And then we had to have special wires and plug wires that had better coverings, so the radio frequency of the voltage going through that was created would be at a minimum, so it wouldn't affect the electronic ignition. Well, then came along twin cam, and we had ECMs, electronic control modules, and we had a few of those early with the Magnum Morelli style, but the electronic control module started another thing we had to look at, the electronic magnetic interference. Okay, our sensors are so susceptible to interference from electronics from high voltage because the sensors are running on 5 volts and really low amperage. So we had to start thinking of radio frequency interference and electromagnetic interference when we are trying to make a more powerful ignition system. So Harley has their plug wires that they developed that worked with the ECM, and we had the R model 6R12 spark plugs, and then they offered these Screaming Eagle plug wires. And are they better? Yes, you can look on the ends of these. Okay, we have 7mm, 8mm. We had more covering. Really basically the same inner, but we had more covering for more protection and more protection from the radio frequency and electromagnetic frequency. So was the Screaming Eagle spark plug wires better? Yes. Did they produce any more spark? No, they just allowed more spark as much as what the regular spark plug wires would do. But if you owned a dresser and you have the front spark plug wire going over the motor mount and the horn and getting over there, you'll find that it wears really easily with the stock plug wire. So the Screaming Eagles was a good plug wire to go to for longevity. They lasted longer than the stock plug wire. Then during the twin cam era, Harley-Davidson came up with the ion sensor, and that's what I needed to get to before we talked about, is it worth buying the fat spark plug wires or Screaming Eagle plug wires? The ion sensor, this is something that Harley designed so it would measure the resistance through the plug wire, through the spark plug, to how hard is it for that spark to jump across the electrode. Okay, it senses that much resistance and tells the ECM that it should retard the timing a little bit because there's possible spark knock. Spark knock is when a spark goes off before it's supposed to. And it can be created with a lot of heat, bad fuel, a lot of things can influence it. But Harley-Davidson knew that, okay, with the fuels that we're getting and with the heat and all that and the bigger motors, we needed something. So they created the ion sensor. And you can tell that your coil has the ion sensor because it has 4 prongs. One is for the front, one is for the rear, one is for the power, and one is the ion sensor that is reading everything and telling the ECM, hey, we need to retard the timing. So now we get to the Milwaukee 8. We've got more electronics, a computer that is really sensitive and it's doing a whole lot more than what we ever did down on the other side of this cart. And so we have the M8 with 4 spark plugs and with the regular spark plug wires, and they offer the fat plug. And I've been asked, well, are these better? Yes, they are thicker. so they'll last a lot longer. Will they give me more horsepower? No, but they sure do protect against the electromagnetic pulses and the radio frequency, because in the dyno we put a clamp over to get a reading for the spark plug, and sometimes we can't get it with the spark plug. So you'll see some dyno shops that carry the stock plugs to plug in so they can get a reading off of the motorcycle for the dyno run. So do these work? Yes. Do they last longer? Yes, than these. Do they look cool? Well, that's your opinion. I've seen a lot of guys match up the colors with their bikes. Is it a bad purchase? No. No, it's not a bad purchase. If you want your bike to look a little bit different and run well, a little bit longer than the stock spark plug, and it will allow as much voltage as this and maybe a little bit more, but yes, they're good spark plug wires. Will they give you more horsepower? No. The new spark plug from Harley for Screaming Eagle for the M8 and the twin cam, will it give you more horsepower? No, but it's made out of a better material. It'll last longer. All right, so there's things to consider here. And here's the big thing, two things I have to share with you, talking with the Harley-Davidson techs up in Milwaukee. One, if you're one of these guys that says, hey, on my Milwaukee 8, I only really can see the left side spark plug wires. I can't see the right, so I'm just gonna put 2 on this side. Don't, please, I can't stress it enough. Don't put 2 of these on the left side and keep the stock ones on the right side, because now you have 2 different readings come from one cylinder and 2 different readings from the rear cylinder, and it will screw up the ignition. It won't know what to do. It may not run right. It may not accelerate, and you could possibly hurt the ECM. So please, that's a big tip. Do not change just 2 on the left side and none on the right side, because you cannot see it. Second thing is, all right, some of you just don't want to buy the Harley-Davidson products. Yes, Harley has designed the fat plugs and the Screaming Eagle spark plugs and plug to work with the ionized system. All right, it's made for it. Do they work a little bit better than stock? Slightly, but it's not going to give you more horsepower. For those of you that are looking at the aftermarket world and wanting to buy their spark plug wires, here's the thing. If you change the spark plug to possibly a better spark plug, better made, something that flows, that'll jump that spark better, and then you put an aftermarket or different spark plug wire, now you have different resistance going through the spark plug, through the plug wire, to the ion sensor in the coil. When it's set up with an algorithm from Harley-Davidson, how is it going to know that it's time to retard the timing or not? Because it has different readings than what it was programmed to do. So keep that thought in mind if you're thinking of going outside the Harley products, because the ignition system was designed as a complete system for the Harley stuff. But you can go out of the Harley world. I saw on the internet advertisement, and sure enough, this is the most important thing to look for. These are 100% compatible with the ion sensor knock retard system used by Harley-Davidson. If you see this, all right, then this manufacturer has done his homework, has done everything they can to make sure that it works with your Harley-Davidson in retarding your system. So, just a little tech tips from Low Country, and the answer to the question, should I buy the fat plugs or not, or the Screaming Eagle plugs? That's up to you, because now you have all the knowledge you need to make that decision. I'm Doc Harley. We'll see you next week.